Ah, time to sit and contemplate. The sun is setting. I've just done my mandatory 5K run. And running is a really good therapy because it gives me time to think and kind of summarize everything I've learned and contemplate about the day that's been, the last few days, a few weeks, or months has been. And today, when I went to a coffee shop, I saw a video from the PANS Prostate Cancer Research Institute with Dr. Schultz, and it was a video I've seen in my feed a few times, but I kind of just skipped over it because I thought I'd seen it before. It was about when is it appropriate to take action on your prostate cancer. And now I've heard that he had said that if you have two people coming in for a treatment and they are at the same level and everything else is equal, then whether you get treated now or you get treated 6 months later, it has the same long-term outcome. And so that's kind of what I've hanged my hat on, that nothing is in a rush. Whether I do it now or I do my own things for 6 months, it's all the same in terms of the long-term outcome. But there's obviously a variable to it. So when I watched this video today, I realized that the variable is obviously at which stage are you. And so he repeated what I've already learned for a stage 7, or not stage 7, but for Gleason 7 prostate cancer, which is a 4+3 or a 3+4. But when it comes to Gleason 8, or as you specifically said, Gleason 9 and 10, which are the more aggressive versions, and especially in metastases, then 1 or 2 months doesn't make a big difference. That was what he said. So all of a sudden I'm sitting here, I'm postponing it, planned on postponing it for at least 2 months. And hopefully I maybe do even more. And then I start thinking, oh, wow. So because of metastases, we're not supposed to postpone it too long because then the long-term outcome can be different. So my initial thoughts were circulating around what am I going to do on the 24th when I go visit my urologist? Am I just going to take that handbrake and use the ADT? So definitely have to take a look at that further in detail as to what's going to happen if I do so, and how rapidly will there be changes to my life and all the side effects that there are from the hormone therapy. Because it might very well be relevant for me to do so. I don't want to play around here. But at the same time, as I was out running and I had the time to absorb the information, I also realized that obviously he's also only speaking general terms. And if you have 2 clients, 2 patients, if you will, and none of them are doing anything actively to mitigate the issue they have, and one is treated now and the other one on a stage 3 metastases are treated 6 months down the road, there might be a long-term difference in the outcome of those 2 in terms of maybe lifespan, in terms of quality of life, in terms of many things. But if you have that one person who is postponing it actively actually doing something, I don't think that no longer applies in terms of what is generally seen as being advised as good. Obviously, I'm speculating here, but all things equal, if you're doing nothing, the situation obviously can only progress in one direction. And if you're doing something, it potentially can progress to something better. And since I am by no means, by no stretch of the imagination, doing anything on a standby, I'm actively pursuing a fantastic PSA number by the 22nd of January, then I don't consider myself in need of being worried. So I've also just today received my 60% and 30% canna oil. Not very much into all the details of how that works, but the one I've had so far, 30% CBD, is derived from hemp, as far as I understand, and the bottles I've got now is derived from cannabis. It should be cleaner, and it should give a more smooth experience, and it should taste better, and it should be a lot more potent. If it is so indeed, I don't know. I've actually, just for the fun of it, looked into it, whether I could actually make it myself, but it requires probably some ingredients I don't really have an easy way of getting my hands to, including very strong alcohol. But that might be something I'll be looking into down the road, depending on what comes out on the 22nd of March, 22nd of January, sorry. Because as it is right now, I've got a stash of CBD and canna oil that will last me at least 6 months, so I have no urgency in producing anything myself. But it's also just to remind you, if you're watching these videos because of your own doubts and your own consideration as to what to do in the future, remember there is a difference between general terms, a conclusion, and then the individual conclusion. That's also why we also have to be so vigilant in our research, because when the doctor is going to give us the answer as to what to do, he's doing it out of a general perspective. He has no way of knowing every detail of you as a patient, especially because you don't have the time for it. But the second thing is also that you have the opportunity to research specifically based on your situation in terms of your fitness level, your age, your overall health being. Do you have certain comorbidities that has to be taken into the equation, like diabetes or hypertension, or how often do you exercise? How much discipline do you have to pull through with certain changes in your lifestyle? And what kind of changes have you done? And all these things are variables that plays into whether the result is going to get good or not, whether you can produce result without medicine. Now, I was sitting at the chair by the urologist at the last meeting on the 27th of December, and he has not seen any blood work from me at all. He's seen my PSA, and he might have seen my first blood work. I'm not 100% sure whether he got access to that. But other than that, he's not seen anything. He doesn't know what kind of life I'm living. He doesn't know how disciplined I am in terms of the new changes I've made. He doesn't even know what kind of changes I've made. I know that he neglected even to pay attention to the fact that my PSA was lowered to 93 and then later on to 78. It seems to mean nothing to him. And obviously he's schooled that way. So this is why we have to look into things very specific for our own needs, because he cannot have that in his equation. He just ain't got the time for it. So I'm very, very excited to see what's going to happen on the 22nd of January. Now, today at 12 o'clock, I had my last meal for the next 48 hours at least. I am hoping to run it for the 7 to 2 hours. This seems to be the magic time frame of a healthy fasting to get into, what do they call it? Not sarcophagus, something that changes the metabolism and where your body starts to clean up itself. I'm not very good at fasting, really, and I know I'll have a crisis tomorrow, but I'm planning to be very active outside so I do not have too much time to think about it. So that's going to be interesting. Very, very curious to see how this is going to pan out. We're talking less than 3 weeks. I'm going to have the result of my PSA. Less than 3 weeks. Until next time, stay healthy.